Jason. And my man with the master plan, Stan. All right, let's get going. You guys ready to rock and roll? Feeling it.
All right. So I'll ask, let's give 30 seconds for folks to grab something and take a seat. We're just getting started. Right. Love that. Awesome. So as you guys have seen our founders pitching on the fintech and their ideas, now we want to deep dive really quickly on what it means, right? So why don't we do a quick check in the room? Just raise your hand. Who are the founders? Like first-time founders, serial entrepreneurs? Oh, that's amazing. Great. Any mentors, advisors in the room? Awesome. Any investors in the room? Angel investors, VCs? Awesome. All right, that's great. So why don't we dig in, and we're gonna have some Q&As as well, so feel free to ask questions. The panel is about, as we know, there are tons of industries like fintech, health tech, legal tech. Those are sensitive industries, meaning there are some rules and regulations, and before you launch something, you have to make sure you're compliant, right? Otherwise, there are lots of liabilities and everything. And in order to do that, as we all know, for past 3 years, AI has been making lots of change and trends. I mean, AI has been here for more than 10, 15 years, but really every day, every startup, every company is trying to use AI, whether it's AI-powered products, whether it's in enterprise workflows, right? So today we want to dive in from a panelist what it really means. So my first question is, how would each of you define AI in fintech today, the hype versus reality? So whoever wants to go first?
How you guys doing? My name is Stanley. I'm the founder of Renavest. We're a fintech financial therapy marketplace where we help individuals heal their relationship with money by connecting them with certified financial therapists. Probably a lot of individuals may not have heard about financial therapy, but it's a way to be able to impact individuals' relationship, root cause issues, stress, avoidance, things like that. When it comes to AI, me as a founder, especially the pressure in regards to, as soon as it became popular and we've seen the different use cases, I think as a founder, we're automatically thinking how we can automatically implement it. But first I think you kind of view what the operational workflow is that AI may actually have. And so when it comes to reality, or when it comes to more hype, where you kind of try to differentiate. I think about use cases where it's fraud detection. I think is a really important one that you want to think about when it comes to fintech. I think about segmentation, summarizing different aspects when it comes to AI, personalization. Those are the different ways that we're thinking at Renavest. We haven't implemented in our product roadmap, but those are the things that I feel like are just easy, respectful ways to implement it. And then from a high perspective, when it comes to actually providing financial advice, which I think that's not some place that we want to be seeing AI used, or completely replacing underwriting, but being able to use it hand in hand.
Can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Jason Kraus, director of Startup Grind, and also founder of Prepare for VC, where we're coaching early stage founders through the fundraising process, both through individual side and through cohort-based programs. I've also founded a couple of fintechs in the past. One of them, which AI tools would have helped a lot with, we coded with a low-code platform on Bubble. That was about 10 years ago, and what we built in a year and a half probably would take 3 days today. One aspect, there's a lot more you can get done and develop right now. But on the other side, it's different than other industries where there's really sensitive data, there's a lot of rules and regulations, and if you make a mistake on something that affects people's financials, it's a lot more significant liability there. So I think there's this balance between what can the technology do and where are you including a human in the loop to actually verify and connect and be a part of the system. And for every company, it's finding that that balance of where the technology is accelerating everything that couldn't be done in the past manually or would take a lot more resources to get done, versus making sure there's still those guardrails and regulations protecting all the people that you're servicing.
What was the question?
So how do you define AI in fintech? What is the hype and what is the reality? What do you
Got it. All right. Hype at this moment, in my opinion, is like, oh, we're going to leverage AI and plug it into everything to do everything for you, and it's going to order your groceries, pay your bills, like put your kids through college and everything else. And we are seeing that rolling out in a few different industries, but I think it's measured, and so I'm okay with that, and we'll see where it goes. Like I was talking to Steve earlier today, he told me that Claude came out last week with like a bunch of new private wealth management tools and stuff. And so it's new every day, but I think where they're pushing it, we'll start to kind of see what sticks and what doesn't. And I think it's going to come down still to the end user. Like, again, I don't need a bot to order Amazon for me. Like, I don't care about that. I care about the usability side, right? And like, I'm a guy that glazes over when I'm staring at spreadsheets and stuff like that. I really do. I'm better with graphs, visual representation, playing with the data, having the data unlock insights for me, right? And so where I've experienced it in a very awesome capacity has been like on personal management things like Monarch, right? Things like that, right? Like where it's tracking in all the inflows and outflows and everything else, and you can just talk to it and be like, dude, like, where's my money going, or what's coming up, or what should I be doing in capacity? I love that right now. So for me, I love the enhanced accessibility, pliability, because beforehand I always needed like my guy from Lazard to do the number crunching and stuff. Whereas like now I can do it, and I'm really, really into that. And we'll see where it goes. Fintech has like so many different splinter cells underneath it. We're also seeing a lot more like the predictive marketplace models and these kind of things and everything else, and kind of coming in and either elevating deals or flowing deals your way based upon your concepts and stuff. And I still have yet to see that be really well integrated for people that are a little bit more financially like illiterate, because I'm worried about the predatory practices and things like that behind it. But again, ask me next week and something will be different, right?
Yeah. No, I love that because, as you mentioned, Ben, right, everyone has different use cases, right? Whether it's consumer product, whether it's wealth management, or whether it's like using day-to-day lives, right? Like for example, there are so many apps like Rocket Money, right? It's just a simple budgeting, like, okay, where you're spending and what you're doing. But how AI is helping, I think they've been testing is, tell me, this is your budget. If you are gonna buy, let's say TV, you're not gonna meet your goal, right? So that's where it's giving you suggestions. But also I would love to ask you guys, given, there are companies who are using AI in some way, right? In some workflow, they have some features. How founders, if they are trying to think, oh, I want to include AI, a feature or somewhere, what's the liability? Meaning like how they can make sure if someone is using AI, because there are rules and regulations, right? Nowadays they're saying like, oh, if an AI gives suggestions, like buy this stock, sell this stock, and that's a black box, right? So now they're like, if they do that, if they lose money, if a human lose money, it's the liability of the company. So in that case, how the founder should think about using AI in their product, and as we're talking about the guardrails, what should be the thought process?
I'm gonna piggyback off of some points you mentioned anyways. As a founder, like, it's something that we wanna add later in our product roadmap, and so it's at what point do we wanna actually implement it? I think you mentioned as well, like things that Rocket Money does. We wanna stay away from like financial advice, but for our financial therapy product, this is an opportunity where we can be able to provide data insights or stress triggers when someone is stressed out about their personal finances, right? And so if they're having conversations with their financial therapist, we can use the AI meeting note takers to be able to then summarize that information. And then, if we connect to like a third party that's trusted, like Plaid, in which now we can integrate, where their spending habits are happening. That's also tied with their actual conversation with their financial therapist. and then it's connected to, you know, their actual financial goals. So it keeps them on track, based off of like, hey, you're, you know, spending a lot of money here, or overspending, compulsive spending, or you know, you have a financial goal to, you know, save for a wedding or buy a house. Then we can be able to send those stress triggers, and it's more of a support system compared to like, oh, you need to do this, X, Y, and Z with your money. So,
So, you know, I joined here 2 years ago on Friday, right? For the first 6 months, I couldn't even remember the word compliance, but I had to drill it in my head. And so that's the world in which I live in, right? So for us, we can't even leverage a lot of things with you know, AI specifically yet, because like everything has to be on-prem, it has to be like super locked up, super tight, and we're not gonna give Sam Altman all of our data and our client data. It's just not gonna happen. And so a little slower to adapt to that capacity, but open to continue to sort of iterate you know, in pieces and stages. And I think that's kind of similar with companies too, right? Like I think the way you guys are leveraging it makes a ton of sense around taxes, the IRS, and things like that, because there's all these available things that you didn't know about that we can just surface at the right time. But then there's also the level of it of like, oh, we're gonna start, you know, throwing in a bunch of agentic stuff and we're just gonna rip it and don't worry about, you know, compliance or anything else. So it's like, I think it's just about balancing the need, and obviously working with a ton of startups, like sometimes they're just a little too early to implement it where it really makes a difference because you don't really have those unique data sets that are unique to your business yet, right? So you can train it as much as you want with a bunch of outside data sources and stuff, but then when it really gets down to the road and commercializing and raising capital, it's like, what's your defensible moat? Are you just a wrapper? What's the situation? So sometimes it's really about just like drilling down, solving the problem for the customers, and then figuring out where you can incorporate it and implement it in certain ways. Unless of course you're just gonna be AI from the start, but thinking about the long-term roadmap and what your strategy is. Like today, like going back to what Jason was saying, like, you know, what took you guys a year and a half and me back in the day, like href equals blah, blah, blah. Like, you know, I literally like over the weekends in between a total of 2-hour block while I'm dealing with my kids, you know, built a whole like Excel sheet analyzer thing and a hot sauce company. It was super fun. And it's like, and so now I think it's wide open, but it's really about like, you know, leveraging these tools to get you to MVP to actually start doing what you need to do, because sales cures all. And like, if you can figure that out, epic. And then at some point, you're probably gonna need to rebuild. That might continue to extend as things get a little bit more sophisticated. But I think it's critical to really own exactly what you're doing. So as an example, Stanley over here with financial therapy blew my mind when I first learned about it, because I was like, yeah, of course, duh. Like, we all suffer from it at some point in our lives, or still, and didn't even think about it. But he's doing it right by kind of starting with like the human side of it first. What's the humanistic side? What's the human touch? What do we actually need to solve this issue? And then we'll leverage those learnings to then incorporate ways for automation, suggestive triggers, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah.
Yeah, so you brought a good point, right? Like, okay, you have to try and everything, and I'll cover that, like build versus buy. But also, like, let's say this is a financial information, right? Like, how do you make sure as a founder, or you're developing an app, right? It's easy to make now, like you can just go and create the app, but the data, the financial information, the customer information, how do you go about that? Because let's say if you have an app and it's a financial app, but to get the customers on the app is a challenge, and they like, don't use my data to train your product. So how do you tackle those? Like, because you will need the data, you need the financial information, but as a founder who's just starting off, how do you discuss about like opting out from training the customer's information to really make your product work?
I mean, I just discovered in ChatGPT that I could turn that off. Like I didn't realize, you know what I mean? Did anybody here in the audience have a opinion on that question? Go ahead.
There is models that you can train on, applications that you can purchase that will synthesize your customer data. So we create synthetic data with a statistical reference. So they won't lose their statistical reference of the profile of the customer, but it will be fictitious, it will be synthetic. So there's guardrails, as you mentioned, that you can apply, but has been
that's a good point. Like synthetic data, like that's what I've seen people using. It's in healthcare or fintech or legal tech. Just play and see if it really works and create those scenarios and put some guardrails, right? So that's like one of the things. But when it comes and like there are options in fintech, and maybe Stan, we can also like how you're doing it, right? Because customers can opt out, so you can't train the model, but that's something that the founders have to think about, like how do I gain the trust? So what I'm trying to get into is like, as you're using AI, as you're building your company, how do you gain trust of your customers and make sure like, okay, we're not using your data, we're not using your information, whether they opt in or opt out.
Well, I think, yeah.
I was gonna say, I think that's differential privacy is also a relatively new field that involves kind of anonymization of data, especially healthcare data. I was also curious, kind of relating to that in the last topic about errors and omissions insurance, which I was just reading about that someone sent me because I'm a startup founder trying to figure out how to stay out of trouble or deal with it if someone, even if they don't have a valid case, they can still take you to court, and I guess this can help pay for legal fees, the E&O insurance, and then there was this one article that said every AI company should have E&O insurance, and then especially in fintech where they can say, oh, I lost $500,000 because of your website, and then not having purchased E&O insurance. Also curious if you guys know anything about that and how that would factor in this. But I guess it's a type of insurance among the types of insurance that help guard against, and I guess there might be future new types of insurance like AI insurance, like AI accident insurance or something that could be in the future, AI hallucination insurance or something.
Yeah, those like the thing I think that is applicable in all industries, but I think I have seen in fintech, like if you are saying, oh, you use the legal advice from, let's say, a fintech product, and you know, as a human, like as a customer, you lost some money, and you'll go back to the company like, hey, I lost my money because of the AI chatbot said something or gave me information, and that is considered as a black box, right? And they are required, the companies now are required to consider as like, even if it's your AI, if it's not human, you have to deal with that. So they are making some compliances and rules and regulations, but yeah, I don't know if you guys have anything to add on.
I just don't like compliance, but it's critical in this era for sure. And I hadn't heard of that insurance, so I'm going to look into that because that would be something that would be hyper beneficial for all of our companies that we're working with. I mean, honestly, I'll bet you some of the guys know about those things, but yeah, I can see that happening 100%. I mean, obviously, also today with blockchain, we're seeing a lot of that where they're leveraging in that instance, they're leveraging the blockchain to have more transparency, kind of knowing what's going on. And so once it's on there and off the fiat system, then they can kind of have more guardrails and controls that are there. I haven't seen instances yet where it's like, don't use my data to train the model yet based on what people are using it for, unless it's like very B2B kind of scenario. You've got your moat, they've got their moat, and you want to whatever. But from a B2C capacity, most people right now are very open to just be like, do this for me, do something, and you'll figure it out. Like, and also, hold on, like at one point, are people going to stop caring? And I really kind of mean that, right? Like Google, right? Google's free. You guys use Chrome all the time, Gmail all the time. I mean, I don't hear it anymore because of compliance. But basically, like, guess what? I mean, Google's got all your data already. They've been using it all along anyway. But did we care? No, because we had an email and a calendar and search, right? And at this point, I'm going to have like bots doing my laundry and someone telling me, how to make money or et cetera. And I'm probably going to let it fly. Like, I'm serious. I think it's going to be a really big B2B thing.
Yeah.
And that's what we're seeing also with companies where they also have to be built like enterprise grade ready from the ground up versus leveraging like SMB sales to like go to market, shorten the sales cycle to make money and live, and then kind of graduate to the enterprise. We're seeing more companies right now that's like they need to be enterprise grade first, the security and all that other stuff, and then they can branch out.
I think OpenAI is a great example though, because basically they said, if you care about us using your data, it's $30 per team member per month. If you don't care, it's free. And go use the system, and we're going to train everything and get better. And so some people say, hey, I want the free version. Use my data, train your systems. I get everything I need because of that. Other people say, this is for my business. I need it protected, and I'm going to use a paid version and a premium tier for that.
We'll also work with some companies, that's a good point, it's a good call out. Like we'll also work with companies where a lot of fintechs will want us to be their bank so that we can facilitate those transactions, the ABAs, the OBOs, the DBAs, all the abbreviations. You know what I mean? Which essentially means deposit, hold, sit, distribute, right? And in that case, like those individuals, like they have to be SOC 2 compliant. They have to go through all of the kind of things in play. So I'm hoping that those kind of guardrails are a continuous thing. And we'll see where the regulations continue to go with that, right? I mean, like the administration or not, like they're definitely like pro AI, you know what I mean? And David Sachs, like him or not, is like trying to plow ahead with making things a little bit either open, that could be good or bad, right? But definitely not closing it, and definitely not making it state by state so that it's different in Mass than it is in New York, etc. So we'll see.
Yeah, great point. Like, just to add, and then I'll switch to another one is, I've seen a founder, so they had a company, they were initial stage, to your point, and they have like, as a, early stage founders or mid stage, you have 5-10 customers, right? And you're trying to get them to paid, client, or you want them recurring client, right? So the reason why I was really interested about how you gain the trust, because what happened is one of the clients, they realized, oh, you are using our information to train the data, to train the model, and the customers, the client asked, don't do that. And now the founder was like, okay, now what should we do? Because everything they had was, the built-in was using AI, training the information from the clients to give them the solutions. So then they have to find another solution. So you have to think in a way what your customers are really asking for and how and what you want to do as a founder. One of the points you guys mentioned, I want to ask about as founders, right? Depending whether they have funding or they're bootstrapping, when do they decide whether they want to build or buy, right? Because enterprises, yes, they have resources they can build, whether they can acquire, but as a founder, what should I be thinking about? Oh, this is the right stage to build myself, or should I just buy or rely on something else?
I mean, I haven't met a lot of first-time founders that are in a position to buy, but it is happening a little bit more because we're seeing a lot of smaller funds come out that are here to help people purchase, either aging businesses that are aging out, sterile businesses or whatever, and then incorporate some additional technology and everything else. Really good buddy of mine, everything he touches turns to gold. Got out of the venture game and is now funding people buying laundromats, businesses that are getting transferred from grandparents that don't want to, he's just all in on that business and it's doing really good. Because again, everything he touches turns to gold. But it's interesting to see kind of where that's going. And I think it's all about build. I guess if you're in a position to buy something and you think it's been poorly run and operated, and you can look at the mechanisms of it and figure out, okay, where can I cut costs? Where can I fully transfer this? And how can I incorporate my expertise to make it better and not have to do the 0 to 1 thing? More the power to you. I think that's awesome. But it's, in a way, it's you can turn it into your baby, but it's still gonna be somebody else's baby and now your stepchild that you're raising and putting through college. And it also might have been built at a time where now you're also inheriting technical debt or no tech at all, and yada, yada, yada. And so you're really having to figure out, are you buying the brand? And if you're buying the brand, can you actually even afford it? Are you buying the tech stack, and can you now do it overnight or a weekend better? I don't really see the reason for buying unless you're consolidating users and revenue overnight. I think you just need to have super high conviction in a spot and then build it from scratch to be better than what is out there. And you have to be pissed off to do it. Steve, you got a question?
I was going to comment in terms of
comments.
build versus buy. I think one of the areas is around talent and development. So normally you would, I don't know, I'm trying to figure out if this is build versus buy, but would you buy $50,000 worth of credits in Anthropic normally? I don't know. Does that replace a $90,000 engineer? Looking at that, looking at those numbers is something that we need to think about as founders to say, yeah, it feels weird to spend that much money on AI, but if it's actually accelerating and being able to do something we would have otherwise had to hire for, I think that makes it.
Yeah.
It's like the last 6 to 8 weeks has been watershed in terms of that
Totally.
analysis.
It's almost like not build versus buy, it's like a build versus replace. Like,
Right.
I'm sure you heard Jason over the last couple of weeks talking about Claudebot and how it's revolutionized their thing or whatever. But basically, like, they're up to, their stance, right, is like, I'm rocking Claudebot to do all this stuff, and I'm spinning up virtual employees, and I'm actually increasing the SaaS spend because each of them are also getting Slack,
Right.
Notion, Google Drive, etc. So actually that's going up. But we're now spending $300 a day, so now each of these things is $100,000 a year, and blah blah blah, right? And so yeah, in that case, it's like, do we build it, or do we replace? I don't know,
What
it's
what
just-
constitutes build versus buy anymore?
Yeah, that's why I got stuck. Just now.
I know.
Yeah, I mean, I think even like with the model, if you're building an AI company, you're even making that decision of, can we use, an Anthropic or OpenAI, or can we use an existing system, or is our differentiator, creating the LLM ourselves? And I think that depends on, are you going to be a platform company, or are you a fintech that uses AI to enhance everything else you're delivering? And maybe your differentiator is more on the compliance side, maybe it's more on the you're matching people with financial advisors, and it's more the matching algorithm or something else. It depends.
Yep.
Yeah, or maybe it's the LLM itself, and you have to make that distinction on what's really your differentiator there.
Yeah, and I want to ask, go ahead.
I just had a question for a follow-up from being an early stage founder. Like, what is VC, if you're trying to raise capital, what's VC's perspective on whether, you're just buying a whole bunch of AI, implementing in your product compared to actually building it out? Because I hear different perspectives where, VCs only want to invest in if you build it yourself versus, if it's, outside or in a whole bunch of integrations.
So you're saying like, so what's your perspective? So as an investor, okay, let's focus on that. As an investor, are they interested in investing in the founders who have built startups, or so when you say buy cannot be like, a little bit in their process, like, oh, I don't want to spend, I'm spending tons of time, like I can buy something, or, just use another application to help me. So how do you differentiate like what they're investing in? How would you take that?
Well, yeah, my question, even for Jason, from an investor standpoint. So, if an investor or a fund wants the founder to, build out their AI integrations, or compared to like just getting it outside of that, then I think that's something that I got to take into consideration as well.
Yeah, I think, the example I like to use a lot is, the cloud technology before this. It used to be, you're either a cloud company or you're not. Now it's just assumed that most businesses are, there's SaaS running on some sort of cloud software, and there's cloud companies, there's cloud AWS, there's a local Wasabi, and there's other big players that, they're the platform side, but every other business just uses that technology in fintech, ed tech. So I think we're gonna get to a place where it's gonna be assumed every company, every fintech, every ed tech is gonna use AI in some capacity, but then there'll be platforms that, are being built as startup platforms that people are investing for that. So yeah, if you're getting investment as a fintech for the same reasons you would get investment, before this technology wave, you just have to show like, you are keeping up with the tech trends, and you're implementing them the right way and positioning as a fintech rather than an AI platform.
So then like,
Sorry, but I moderated a panel about 10 months ago of 2 corporate venture capitalists, an angel and an institutional
Yeah.
VC.
Yep.
3 out of the 4 of them said, if you're not using AI, you are uninvestable. So, how define how you use AI is different, but so there's a duality that's happening in B2B, definitely, where investors want you to be using as much AI, and enterprise customers are a little still skittish, but enterprise, there's no doubt investors need to know what your opinion is, what your strategy is, and how you're using it. You can't be silent on the topic.
So I think this is the whole build versus buy is, are you using it to execute something with a 15-person team that would have taken a 50-person team, or are you actually creating the AI yourself?
Yeah.
And, so one's a platform versus this use case.
Yeah, I mean, let me just also start by saying not every investor is correct or the smartest guy in the room. I just want to say that. And it's important for you to be true to like your own roadmap and how you're thinking about things. But Steve brings up a really good point. Where on one side, it's like if you're choosing to go down that strategy, you just need to really know, like articulate why you're going down that strategy, why this makes sense, what the roadmap is, and what your essential, like maybe like split off zone is gonna be to really have that intellectual sort of moat. Or if you're not using it, why? It's okay if you're not, just have a reason why, right? And it could be like your reason right now, right? Where it's very compelling. This is a human to human scenario, man. Like I don't want to be talking to a bot, like at all. And so, I think it's just about understanding that side and knowing when and how. And then at some point, it's been a really cool wave. It's democratized access to technology, which I fucking love, right? I'm a non-technical founder, and it was really tough and very expensive for me back in the day to do what I was doing. And nowadays, anybody with an idea can bring something forward, bring something to market, and then they can make their own decision if they want to go down a venture track or not. I actually think that I've never seen a world where venture has been as threatened as it is now in that capacity, or the standard model, right? Because if I'm just a dude hanging out, making a hot sauce company over a collective 2 hours of, over the weekend in between like diaper changing, I can bring that to, revenue generating, and I own 100% of it, and I own the keys to my kingdom, and I freaking love it, And so, but you can make that decision at that point. And I think the investors right now are dealing with another problem where it's like, okay, now their deal flow is so high. And because everybody, right, is building something, and so they have to actually dig deeper into the stack, into the philosophy, into the go-to-market. Can these founders, and they're still making, especially if this is your first company or whatever, like they're still betting on the founder beyond anything else. And so it really has to be like, what is your plan to, go from here to then either rebuild it from scratch because you've completely proven the MVP, you've got things, and now you're gonna stand it up from scratch to have the defensible mode, or it just graduates into something else. I really don't know yet. But what we do know, and if we just look at the stats, right, like, what is it? Over 70-something% of the VC dollars is getting sucked up into $100 million+ deals. A lot of them are infrastructure deals, which we're about to have a little bit of a blip in. And the amount of money that's flowing to companies that are raising under $10 million rounds has dropped from 48% to 22% over a 1-year period. So what we're seeing is there's more money out there than ever before, but a smaller allocation of it is going to earlier stage companies, and a larger allocation is going to these mega funds. As a result of that, what else are we seeing? We're seeing these mega funds, and look, we can't even call them funds anymore. They're essentially private equity, but everybody from Sequoia, Kleiner, and everything else. Like if you're making more on your fees than you are on your investments, like you're a freaking private equity company. But what you're seeing is a lot of these like junior guys coming out of the guys who actually are on the streets, the guys that actually are in the founder circles, that are actually finding the talent of tomorrow, and those things that are leaving those massive firms, starting their own smaller firms to invest in seed and pre-seed early, because honestly, they're the rock stars of those big companies now, and they're not given that flexibility and wiggle room. And so, again, too early to tell, but like that's what we're seeing right now. And I think, either VC is gonna have to, kind of reshape the model, or founders are gonna have to go at it longer on their own. And that's okay these days. It's a lot easier these days. It's still challenging, but I think it's still the reality of the situation. And again, time will tell.
Yeah, I love that. So I have seen this